you guys. My name's Anita Hartog. Welcome back to The Other Side. Today, I am so excited to bring to you my girlfriend, a new friend, and I am just like so blessed to have met her because she's just been a light in my life. Her name is Cristina Briseno.
Hey, everyone.
She is with Bayshore Lending, and she is also a mother. She is spiritual. She is a wonderful business owner, and she is also an inspirational speaker. She had done a few events that have brought many people together and taught them, some new ways of doing business and living life. And I just really appreciate her altogether. So I am going to tell you why I brought her here today. I met her in the business, in the industry, and we had this moment. We were sitting in the car and we were just talking. And I guess the comfort level we had for each other, it just really struck up this whole entire conversation of her life story. And it was a beautiful life story. I just was blown away, and I thought that it would be amazing if she shared it all with you guys today. So,
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Anita, and thank you for this. I think, that moment, those are the best moments where it just happens organically and you don't know who
yes.
you're, sitting next to and what that person's gone through. And, they don't want to share,
Right.
and just, I've learned to be vulnerable and be open, and life, is what it is. And
Yeah.
we're put here to share a story,
Yeah, it's a testimony,
Yeah.
and it can help somebody else get through like a really tough time. And
Right.
so I really appreciate it. I laughed.
Thank
I
you.
told her, thanks for getting naked with me because it really is like getting naked. I
Right.
mean, you're putting yourself out there, you're
Mhm.
putting your it's
Right.
intimate moments that you're
Right.
sharing with the strangers,
Right.
basically, but hopefully to help bring awareness and to let them
Yes.
know that there is the other side,
Yes,
right?
there definitely is. Yes,
So I
yes.
like to start like by knowing people's childhood because I believe that people have this idea that if you have a rough life in the future, you've always had a bad childhood.
Mhm,
Sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's not.
mhm.
So in order just to get the audience to know you a little better, I like to just touch on your childhood and how you grew up.
Okay, so I was born to a single mother. She came to the States sometime in like 75-ish, right around there, and crossed the border, with her sister's green card at the time,
Wow.
and she came here. She met my dad, and my dad hired her as a factory worker in
Oh,
Montebello.
oh, my
Okay.
hometown.
Yeah, there you go. And so this is the story that I was told, right?
Yeah.
So she met my dad and they fell in love. She fell in love with the boss. And now I didn't know this until many, many years. And we'll go to, as we
Right.
get into the whole podcast, I'll share
Yes.
that story. But, I was born, in 1977. I was born
Hmm.
in General Hospital. And my dad was, she became a single mom,
Okay.
but I remember the story um, when I was at an age where I could understand, like, well,
Hmm.
I don't have a dad, or what's going on? How come the other kids have a dad? But the story goes, I was born in General Hospital, and my mom and I, she said I went in, everything was free because she was on welfare and the whole thing. And
Hmm.
so she gave birth, but she had to get out immediately. You give birth and you got to go. We had nowhere to go.
Oh,
We had nowhere to go. So she called one of my aunts, and, she says, I just need money for a Greyhound to go back to Mexicali. Right.
wow.
And so my aunt's, what are you talking about? You just had this baby. You can't get on the bus. Well, she said, you got to get on this bus. I have nowhere else to go.
Hmm. It's okay. You're being strong. You got this. It's past, baby.
So my aunt shows up, and she was her brother's wife. And my uncle said, no, they can't come here. There's no room, which is understandable.
Hmm.
And my aunt said, absolutely not. You're not going to get on the bus. So she picked us up in a
Hmm.
taxi because she didn't drive.
Wow.
So she took us home to Norwalk, which is where they lived. And we were there for quite a few years, actually.
Hmm.
We were there for a few years. And my mom had to work. She had to work. And so we would stay there with my aunt. My aunt didn't work. And so she, kind of raised her and her three other daughters, all girls. But unfortunately, my uncle, my mom's brother, was an alcoholic.
Mm.
He was an alcoholic. And so I guess that's kind of where like the abuse started as a young girl, where you would see my uncle
Mm.
beat the crap out of my aunt,
Yeah.
in cowboy boots, and take off his belt and whip her. And he was an alcoholic. And,
Mm.
it was just crazy traumatic, where we couldn't, call 911. We couldn't do any of that stuff.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Um, just a lot of things that a young girl, growing up,
Shouldn't be,
right?
yes.
We
You
shouldn't,
shouldn't have to see and
right? We
shouldn't
shouldn't have
have
to
to
see those
be,
things.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we saw that happen growing
Mhm.
up, but from there, like I always felt like our time was limited. Where everywhere we had to stay, it was just always limited and going
Yeah.
back and forth. So most of my childhood, from what I remember, was going from one aunt's house on their couch, a
Mm.
bedroom for a little while, and then camping out for a bit, and then going on somewhere else
So
and
just
moving
very
on.
unstable.
Very,
Y
very unstable, and always like, it's time to go, guys. It's time to go.
Yeah.
And being a child, even at being 5, 6, 7 years old, you remember those things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You remember not having that stability.
Yeah.
And I guess I get emotional because it's
It's
so different. It's so
emotional.
different with my children now. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's the complete like, it's
You
not
would
right.
never.
Right, I would never.
Yeah.
Right, right. But with my mom, she had to do what she had to do.
Yeah.
She had left my sister, who is 2 years older than me. She had left her in Mexico with my
Oh,
grandparents. That's when
wow.
she crossed the border, came here, had me, and my dad was nowhere to be found after
Mhm.
that. Right. So after bouncing around, going from one place to another, I remember my mom saying, here's some cotton. I'm like, the cotton's for what? We'll put it in your ears. For what? She goes, because the roaches won't go in your ears.
Oh,
Because we're
no.
sleeping on the floor today, or we're sleeping on the
Yes.
couch today, or we're staying here. But
Yeah, yeah,
wherever we
yeah.
were, it was just
So she
temporary.
took care of you as much
She
as
took
she
care of
knew
me, and she
how.
knew
Like,
how
I mean,
exactly.
geez,
As
yeah.
much as she knew how, she took care of me, and was just trying to do the best that we
And even
can.
now being a mother yourself, right? You couldn't even imagine being in her situation, I
Right,
bet.
right. I mean,
You
it's
have more grace for her,
right.
realizing, like, I don't know, were you ever angry at her when you were younger?
I couldn't be angry because I just felt that was life. It's
Okay.
normal.
You didn't know any
I didn't know any
different.
different, and that was life, and it's fine. And we had the cousins, and we traveled from, I want to say, Indio, California,
Mhm.
to East LA, to my mom. Like, now you're going to live with your aunt, but I'm going to live over here, and separating us because it
Wow.
was a better life in Monterey
Situation.
Park with my aunt and their family. But it always just kind of felt like you're alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Because
felt
you didn't have a home.
well, you never had a home.
Yeah.
And even if, you live here, it was it was always temporary. It
Yeah.
was always just a temporary fix until we can figure it out. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so, unfortunately, and I don't want to sit here today and say I'm a victim. At some point in my life that I feel like I was a victim. Absolutely. And
Well,
and
when you're a child,
and
you
poor
are
me.
because it's not like you could get up and get a job and move.
Right. Right.
You're a victim to your circumstance. You have a
Yeah.
parent and they
And
call the shots.
exactly. And there's nothing, I mean, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
It's the life, it was the cards that we were dealt with. And my mom she was trying, the
Mhm.
best that she could growing up, with a maybe
For what
fourth
she
fourth grade
knew. She wasn't
education.
even from here either.
Exactly.
So it's not like she was able to just go out and get a job.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that would support her children, you know?
Exactly. And they pulled her out of school at fourth grade in whatever that is in Mexico.
Mhm.
And she had to work at home. She had to
Yeah.
do, just
Survive.
housework, chores, things like that. So she did the best that she could, and I can give her that. Um, Unfortunately, as bouncing around from one place to another, you're stripped of your childhood.
Yeah.
You're not raised, you know,
Free.
in a normal child environment,
Mhm.
like a healthy environment, I should
Yeah.
say. And things happen to me.
You had adult stresses as a child.
Yes.
Where are we
Yeah.
gonna go? Where are we gonna live? How long are
Right.
we gonna be here? When's the next place?
Right.
Instead of going out to play, who's coming over for dinner?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
The issues
Yeah.
that we have today.
Right.
I wish,
Absolutely.
and not that I wish at that point, because I didn't know what any of that was, you
Mhm.
know? What I did know is that as I grew up and things happened, you know, I knew that I was meant for something greater.
Good.
I didn't know what because I was just too young. I just knew like, okay, we're traveling around, going back and forth from Mexico. And, you know, in the summertime, it was they would send us to Mexico for 3 months or
Mm.
however long you were off of
Yeah.
school. So I'd go to my grandparents' house, and that was great because they
Mhm.
had a farm, and my sister was there, and that's the only
That
time
was
kind
more
of
normal.
that was more normal.
Mhm.
They had a cousin who was also left there with the grandparents, and they had pigs and they had cows and
No, I
chickens and the
love
whole thing.
it.
So then
Yeah.
that felt normal
Yeah.
for a short period of time, you
But
know?
then you knew you even had to leave there
Then
and
I had to
come
leave
back.
and I had to come back to the
Chaos.
instability and the chaos
Mhm.
again. And when I was 12 years old, it was unfortunate that something happened to me as a child,
Mhm.
that where my childhood was stripped away from me.
Mm.
Was stripped away
Mhm.
from me being a young girl.
Mhm.
I was just a
Your
girl.
innocence was
It
stolen.
was stolen by people, who took advantage. And, I brought it up and I was told to shut the F up and, we don't
Mm.
talk about it, and then they don't want to talk about it. And
It's so unfortunate because that's not so uncommon,
right.
especially if it's family or
Hmm.
somebody they know and you're just like, what about me? Like the
Right.
child.
Right.
And then they're worried about shame or what when we just had that conversation, what other people may think.
Right.
And it's like, but what about me?
Right. Right. And when you're told as a 12-year-old child, I mean, you're a child, you're like, okay, I'm going to just be quiet. Or it's a bad thing. I mean, it is a
Mhm.
bad thing, but it's a bad thing to say something
Mhm.
about it,
And it
right?
makes you feel guilty
And it
as
makes you
opposed to
feel,
you being the victim, rightfully
right.
so.
It makes you feel guilty. It makes you feel bad. It makes you feel dirty. And, we don't talk about it. And
Mhm.
we don't talk about it. Okay, so you go on with your life not talking about it, and you can't share with anyone. So,
So
you
then
know,
you have this shame.
so then you have the shame, right? So you're a young, beautiful girl with this shame that
That's
doesn't
not
know
even yours.
exactly, right? But then that's what's brought upon you.
Mhm.
Shame on you for even talking about it,
Mhm.
and let's forget this conversation ever happened and we're done. And I can't fathom, like, I have two girls. I
Mm.
have a 20-year-old who's about to be 21, and I have a 19-year-old about to be 19, 18, about to be 19.
Beautiful
And
girls, by the way.
thank you. Thank
Yes.
you.
Beautiful.
And I know that anyone that touched my kids would not be alive,
Oh, no.
or not be in this, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
just, it just, I'm
I'm
going to
with
jail.
you there
I'm going to jail,
100%.
or
Mhm.
something. It's just not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not gonna touch my kids and get away with
Exactly.
it.
And
Yeah.
that's how I feel like,
And
from,
that's where the confusion even comes in because it's like,
right.
how could this even be allowed to happen to me? And then have that attitude
Exactly.
because you can't even fathom
No, I
having
can't
that
even fathom.
attitude. Yeah.
There's just no way. I have no
Yeah,
problem.
they'd have to lock you up and
Been
throw
in
away.
jail
Oh,
before. I have no
yeah,
problem going to jail again.
exactly, girl.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah,
And if it's for
exactly.
this,
Yeah,
and
then it's
it's for a
worth
good
it. Yeah,
reason.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And that's all good.
yeah.
So, continuing my life, 12, 13, 14 years old, I turned to drugs.
Okay, you were angry,
I was angry,
confused.
I confused, and I couldn't talk to anybody about anything. I couldn't talk to anything. Backtracking a little bit too, my mom, God bless her.
Mhm.
God bless her heart. She lives in La Habra somewhere. I don't
So you
have any
don't speak.
communication with her. I have 3 other sisters. I don't have any communication with them, and it's for the best.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely for the best. Um, Growing up as a child, like even at 6, 7, 8 years old, from what I can remember,
Mhm.
I was physically abused.
Mhm.
There's I believe in spanking
Mhm.
a child, and then there is
Abuse.
physical abuse
Mhm.
where there's bruising
Mhm.
and you're beaten, not with the chancla, you're beaten with other.
It's not with love. It's out of
Exactly,
anger
right. It's not out of
and
a
yeah.
discipline or, I'm
Right.
gonna bend over, I'm gonna spank your butt or whatever.
Mhm.
We spanked our kids a handful of times,
Mhm.
So there's spanking and there's
Yeah.
disciplinary and then there's
Yeah.
abuse, and there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that happened, and I was angry.
Mhm.
I was very
Well,
angry.
because you are at that point, you are a victim.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to lay yourself as a victim, but
Hmm.
you are because you're too young to do anything
Right.
about it.
I mean, when you look in the mirror and you have a black eye and you're 13, 14, and you're like, okay. And
And again,
To
you don't
to
know
the
if it's
to the
normal or not.
right, and to the defense, it's, "Okay, well, I snuck out or I did this," right? I mean, I wasn't an angel by all
Yeah.
means, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I put my mother through the
Yeah.
ringer, I sure did. But I don't believe in
Girl, I did
leaving
it too,
marks.
but I didn't come home to get
Yeah,
punched in the
yeah,
face or
right, you know,
yeah,
things like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, um, at 12 years old, you know, I remember smoking. They always say marijuana is not a gateway drug, but
Mhm.
it was for me, at least. It
Mhm.
was for me. I know it's great for so many other things.
Mhm.
But for me at 12 years old, you know, I smoked weed for the first time when I was 12 years old. And again, going back to my kids, I
Mhm.
cannot ever imagine, like, my son, I have a 16-year-old
Right.
son, my daughter who's 18, my daughter, I can't imagine, right, at that
Yeah.
age, like, what is happening, like, something is
Mhm.
happening,
Yeah,
right?
it shows there's an issue.
Right, and so it was, you know, started partying at 12 years old, 13, 14, 15 years old, I was introduced to cocaine.
Mhm.
Okay, well, what is this? Sure, you know, to escape the
Mhm.
reality, right? To
Yeah.
escape the reality at 15 years old, you know, my
And you
mom,
find your clique, right?
right, you find the
The other
clique.
troubled teens who you
Exactly.
can relate to because their
Right.
life isn't so perfect. I mean,
Right.
when your life is so crazy, you don't want to hang out with the perfect ones who have
Right.
this great
Because you
yeah.
got to bond with them. And then
Yeah.
they're, you know, and I can tell you, I've never bought a drug in my life. It was just always in front of me. It was
Mhm.
just always there. And it was just hanging out with the wrong people,
Mhm.
you know, but I didn't know at that time.
Of
Well, these
course.
people care for me and and they were older. They were about 3, 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was ahead of my time always
Mhm.
because of what had already happened to me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not, you
There was
know,
nobody really looking out for you.
exactly.
So you were ready on running the streets. You were
Exactly. And
living like a teenage, like a young adult when you were a young
13,
teenager.
14 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I go back to, like, I won't even let my son, like, as soon as I get done, where are you? You know, come home
Mhm.
now. The other day it was like 8 o'clock and, you know, it was before the time change. You need to come home right now. You can't be out there in the dark. If you only knew that I was out there till 11, 12
Yeah.
o'clock at night on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday night, you know,
Well, it
there's
just
no
makes you a
reason.
wiser parent.
Yeah. Right.
Like, my mom would always tell me, "The
Yeah.
devil never sleeps," and I'd be like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
"Well, the devil never
Ex-
sleeps. He's up 24 hours." Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So at 15, you know, my mom would always, you know, her main thing was don't get pregnant and you guys never get pregnant because it's a Hispanic thing, you know, you get pregnant
Mhm.
at a young age. But for her, it was always like, what will they think of me if you got pregnant? What would they think of me? I didn't do my job. What would they think? It was, what my mom always
Mm.
taught me was, what are they going to think about us? And what are they going to say?
So it was other people's opinions.
Right. It was always, what are they going to say? You
Ugh,
know, what are they going to think about, you know, her? What are they gonna think about what happened to me? You know, but you
yeah.
couldn't voice that because it
Yeah.
was a slap in the face, it was a smack in the face, you know? And, you know, as you get older, you start wondering, like, you have 3 sisters, but well, how come none of us have a dad? You know,
Mm.
none of us have a dad. Well, you do have dads, but they're all different dads,
So
you
they
know?
are all different
They're
dads.
all different
Oh,
dads. So I
okay.
have 4 sisters, and then I'll get into
Mhm.
my fourth sister, but I have
Mhm.
the three, but we all never really grew up together.
Okay.
None of us grew up together because we were so. My sister in Mexico, we're 2 years apart, but she grew up a completely different life
Did she grow up in Mexico
in
or oh,
Mexico
she
until she
did.
was 16. My grandmother passed away, and then she came to live with us.
Oh,
So we
wow.
were living in Cate. So finally, after so many years of stability here, where my mom met someone, yeah. So we were living in Cate at the time, and my mom would always, you know, her main thing was don't get pregnant, right? So it was she had, after me, she had another daughter, and we're 6 years apart. And for some reason, you know, it was always like, you got to take care of your sister. You got to take care of your sister. You got to take care of your sister. And when, you know,
So she was making you
right.
responsible,
I'm,
and you're still a
and I'm the
child.
child and
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
drugs,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, but you got to take care of this kid. And so then my mom gets, so she's telling us don't get pregnant. Well, she gets pregnant at like 40. She gets pregnant at 40 years old
With 5. This will be the 5th.
well, no, not yet.
Oh,
So it's my older sister
mhm.
Brenda, me, and my sister Denise, right?
Okay.
And so Denise and I are 6 years apart, and she gets pregnant. And so she gets pregnant, and she's like, you know, I'm having a baby, and I'm 40, and this, that, whatever. And I'm like, oh my god, you know, like, I'm this baby. So she has a baby, and she didn't work for a little while because she
Mhm.
got to take care of the baby, and the baby passes away 2 months later
Oh, no.
from SIDS. The baby
Oh.
passes away. It was very traumatic, you know, for her. And I mean, I was 15 at that time. I was
Yeah.
15 years old, and I didn't know like what is happening. Like I know the baby died, and I remember going to the funeral, and again, Hispanic families feuding at this funeral for silly things. I do remember that, and I don't know. The baby died, and then it was just got crazier. Like our
Mm.
household got crazy because now there's this trauma because this baby's death came about and the whole thing, and I can't say like I even had a chance to like feel what does it mean because I had a little. I'm
You
15.
couldn't even
We're 15
process.
years
Yeah.
apart, and there's a little baby that was born and gone so quickly. And a few months later, my mom says I'm pregnant again. And we're like, and we're moving. I said, oh, we're moving. You're pregnant again, and we're moving because she couldn't be there anymore, right? And so let me backtrack a little bit to which was a little traumatic as, education was never big with my family. It was not important. It was just you had to go to school because that was kind of like
What you had to do.
childcare. It was kind of childcare and you went there
Yeah.
to
Yeah, they got rid of
yeah,
you
they
for
got
the
rid of you
6 hours
exactly.
or whatever.
Exactly. And so anytime that that you tried to pick up a book and read, or you tried to like say, "Can you guys keep it down for whatever reason?" We were always shut down. Like
Mm.
you shut up, put that book away, or what are you doing? Or it's like you had no chance to even like listen to music or like learn. You were
Wow.
not. It's almost like you were not allowed to learn. You
Like, you
know?
couldn't be better than them,
No,
right?
no. They
Yeah.
just it's and I get like. The whole goal is, if you're born from poverty, like, let's evolve from here. We can be
Yes.
better and greater.
Yes.
And that's where I get where, like, I knew I wanted to learn. I knew I was
Yes.
better. I know it was meant for some kind of greatness or greater power or something. It was meant to be something better.
Mhm.
But when you keep getting shot down, shot down, shot down, it's hard. And
Yeah.
and it's funny because as we jumped around from one household to another, it became a pattern because when my mom finally got her own place, right, and we all had a home, and mind you, it was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, tiny, tiny house, maybe 700 square feet in Norwalk on Foster Road and Pioneer.
How many of
And
you?
so it was so then my grandmother passed away, so my sister came to live with us.
Mhm.
So we never interacted, like we never
Yeah,
lived
she's a total
together.
stranger.
Complete I was a stranger to her, she was a stranger to me, even though we saw each other in the
Every summer,
summer
yeah.
and randomly through the holidays here and there, from what I can remember.
Yeah.
So she comes to live with us. So it's my sister Brenda, it's me, my sister Denise, my mom, her boyfriend, and sometimes two uncles at a time in a
No.
2-bedroom, 1 bath house, right? And so they'd be sleeping on the couch, or there'd be 2 or 3 beds in a room, and that's how we grew up, right?
Mhm.
And so you never had your own space,
Mhm.
right? And so she's pregnant again, and we're having this baby again. And so she has this baby, but this time she's going to work. And she says, here's this baby.
Oh my gosh, she makes you a parent at
She at
15?
15 years old, but we were not allowed, it was death. Like if
Yeah.
you have a baby, it's over and that's a disgrace. And it was like, oh my God, right? But then here's this baby. You have to take care of this baby, my older sister and I. So
Well, that's
Brenda
a
was
good way to
17,
discourage you from having your own.
right? So we were left when she worked nights.
Wow.
So I'm 15 years old, my sister's 17 years old, and we're carrying this baby. We're carrying this baby, and I'm like, I don't know, like the baby's crying, and our children, like, that was hard as hell.
Oh,
It was some
yeah. Well, you're a
freaking like
teen
hard,
mom at just thrown
right?
into it,
And you're
and
not the parent. You
yeah.
didn't make that decision to have a baby. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so one day I was like, fuck this. I said, I'm out. I was 16. I said, I'm out. I'm out. At that point, I was doing some heavier drugs. I was
Mhm.
doing ecstasy and I was doing acid and I was
Mhm.
doing,
Yeah, you really
I
graduated. Yeah.
got into crystal meth,
Yeah.
like some serious, which it was all
Which is a
numbing.
blessing that you're here today
Exactly.
to
And
talk
normal.
about it.
It's
I
somewhat normal.
know, girl. Damn.
you know? I always felt like I'm not a big religious person. I'm more
Mhm.
of a spiritual, like free. I don't go to church, but I always pray to God
Sometimes
and I
I
pray
think
to a
that
higher
makes you
power.
more religious in a sense, because
You know?
like religion, it's so stifling, right?
Yeah.
But when you're spiritual, it leaves you open to just learn and grow and
Yeah.
really have a relationship with
Right.
Christ, you know?
And we're baptized Catholic. We went to church when there was a
Hmm.
quinceañera, when there was a wedding. My mom never made us go to church on a
Yeah.
Sunday, and I don't know if she still does or not, but as she got older, she did, but never pushed it on us because it was
Mhm.
too late. Um, so in all those times that I was out there, in the streets, partying, doing drugs, drinking, and like doing all these things, I just always pray to God, like, please help me. Please
Yeah.
take care of me. Please just watch over me. Just,
Yeah. Keep me
yeah,
safe.
keep me safe. Always, right?
Like, you knew you were out there, you knew you were
Yeah,
rebelling, you knew you were
right.
doing wrong, but you still knew he was
I
there.
knew he was there. I knew there was some higher power watching over me.
Yeah.
I had nowhere to go. And I went to a friend's house. And I said, I have nowhere to go, but that's who had introduced me to these drugs, right?
Yeah.
So I stayed there for a short period because they had their own family and they had an aunt that was ill at the time. She had cancer, and so there was no, again, I knew, what did I know? Oh, bouncing
Yeah.
around from here, I'll go there for a minute,
You were a
and
couch
then
surfer.
yeah,
You were
exactly. I
used
was
to
a
it.
couch surfer,
Yeah.
right? So then I called a cousin of mine and his wife out in Alhambra,
Mhm.
and I said, this and this is what's going on. And,
And you were what,
I
16
was
or
16.
okay.
I was 16. But I had a job. At
Okay.
16, I had a job and I was going to continuation school because I got kicked out of school for not
Mhm.
having enough credits and not going to school.
Mhm.
And so I went to school with all the pregnant people and, the
Mm.
smokers and then
Mhm.
whatever,
So they
everyone,
threw you from
whatever.
one party to
Yeah,
another.
exactly. Right. So
Yeah.
just, that's where you go, whatever. And
Yeah.
that's fine. And I said to myself, I'm going to get enough credits to go back to school and graduate.
So
At
you
that,
had a plan.
I had a plan. I
Mhm.
had a plan, right? Again, at that point, like my mom knew I was living over here, and maybe it made her life easier. Maybe I don't know because I never, still till today, I've never had that conversation with her. But then maybe it was one less headache for her.
I'm sure it made her life easier,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't say it was because one less headache. I would just say it's because she was probably so overwhelmed with everything else she had going on, you
Right?
know?
Yeah, but it's a
But
yeah,
hard. I'm sure
right.
she worried about
And
you.
and
Let's be
she's on
real.
her fourth, kid, and
Yeah.
it's a baby,
Yeah, yeah. So she
So
had her hands full.
she had her hands full, right? And she was still working, and
Mhm.
then her partner at the time was working, and she's again, she just
Trying to
she
survive
always
herself.
she always lived on survival mode, always,
Yeah.
and taught me to live on survival mode, and that's
That's not a
been
fun place to
no,
be.
and as an adult, I look back and I'm like, I feel like I want to live on survival mode, and it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be that way
Mhm.
anymore.
Right.
And so when I went to go stay with my cousins for a bit, guess what? They were partying.
Ah, surprise,
So then let's all
surprise.
party together,
Yeah.
and but they were much older and they were awesome. I mean, it was
Yeah.
so much fun, and then we moved in together. We got a bigger apartment together in Whittier, and I'm still, trying to finish with school and the whole thing. And so I finally graduated from high school, still living with
Mhm.
the cousins. But then it was time to go, like a little falling out situation, and it was
Mm.
time to, to go to the next place. And so I graduated from high school and moved back in with my mom for a minute, right?
Okay.
For a minute. And so I'm 18 years old and I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. I have no
It's
idea what
such
I'm
a
doing.
hard
Yeah.
age because they're like, "You're 18, you're an adult,
Right.
go be an adult." And you're like, "Who what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, what's an
What's
adult
an
and what do they
adult?
do?" Like
And then what's an adult when like nobody's guiding you?
and you've never had an adult, yes,
Yeah. Like, okay,
example,
well,
like
or
a real
I have
example.
no idea. Like, I have no idea what any of it, I have no idea what to do
Yeah.
with my life, right?
I know you feel like you've been adulting anyways because you've been
Exactly.
on your own trying
Right.
to live life.
So then my mom, where she was living in Norwalk, I moved back because then they moved into a little bigger house next door. That
Mhm.
was her friend's house. So I lived there. And I was partying and she knew.
Yeah.
She knew I was partying. She knew I'd come home on acid and I put her through some shit.
Yeah.
I put her through some shit. I did. I totally did. And I think it was more of like, I remember one time she did, I'll tell you a quick story. I was on acid.
Mhm.
I was on acid. And I'm driving.
Yeah.
My boyfriend's company van, the
Oh,
parents' company van in Norwalk.
Mm.
And I get pulled over and I'm like, I can't even imagine. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
my kids, like, and I go to jail. Well, they take me to like,
Yeah.
just the station. And they can't find my mom. She's working, there's no cell phone. So they get a hold of my aunt and her landline. And you gotta come pick her up. And remember, she picks me up and she's talking to my cousin. Don't talk to her because she's on drugs and this and that. So it
Yeah.
was always like
Yeah.
shit like that, you know? And
Yeah.
then they had to call my mom. And I'm sure it was shitty for her. Like, your daughter's on drugs. And I picked her up from the police station. Like, I would feel like shit
Yeah.
if they called me with my kid. You know
Girl,
what I mean?
it happens. It happens.
That was me, you know?
Well, they
And
came and
so-
knocked at my door at 18, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, right? So then I remember my mom saying, like, well, what are you taking? You know, can we get you help? But it was like, can I get you help? But it wasn't real. Like, because I knew
Yeah.
we couldn't afford it.
Right.
I know she couldn't afford like the help. So then I just felt like I'm just a burden to her, you know? So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, right? So now I'm going to get into like my whole how I met my husband situation,
Yeah,
George,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
right? So I had a cousin who had just gone into real estate. He had worked at Music Plus in Norwalk. And so he had gone into real estate because George, my husband,
Yeah.
he had gotten him into real estate, right? So George knew my family through our
friend.
cousin. And so he came around, you know, when I was like 17, 18 years old. He knew the dysfunction in our home and all that. And I remember him coming around. And he was the most annoying person in the whole entire universe. In the whole entire universe.
The whole universe.
The whole entire universe, right? Like, oh, when he would come over, I'd go in my room or like, oh my God, he's here and this, that, whatever. So he knew I was looking for a job. So my cousin, you know, asked me, is there any positions there? So he was really close to the office manager, which
Yeah.
is Robin Alvarez. I know you
Uh-huh.
know at Pacific Escrow at the time. Well, now, but at the time she was office manager for Century 21
Yeah.
All Stars in Norwalk. And so, you know, he got me an interview with her and they hired me right away on the spot. And, you know, when can you start? So I was a receptionist at Century 21 All Stars. And so I was there, I would say no more than like 4 to 6 months. I was there. So then I got my girlfriends that when I was 16 and I left my home, I lived with them for a little while. I got both of them a job.
Really?
Yeah, I got both of them a job there. So all three of us were working
Wow,
together.
fun.
Yeah. So then, you know, George starts dating one of them, right? He starts dating one of them. And so then we're all, you know, kind of hanging out. But it was always like George and I were just always like a clash. Like, ugh, like whatever came out of his mouth was just so like, really, dude, like for real. Or
So
like,
do you think he annoyed you because you kind of liked him, or he just really annoyed you?
he just really annoyed me at the time. Yeah, he just really annoyed me.
Okay.
And, you know, and it might have been because he would say things to me, encouraging things to me like, you shouldn't be doing those things,
You
right?
weren't used to positive affirmation and
Exactly.
kindness.
Yes. So it was like you know, it was
It
like
just
a little
didn't
dagger.
feel
It just didn't feel
normal.
normal because he's saying you're better than that. And there are better things in life than that,
Wow.
than what you're choosing. And so he knew I was doing drugs because the other girls would tell him, well, she's doing drugs. But little did he know, we're all doing drugs together. And I was like, I'm the bad guy, right? Or I'm the junkie or whatever you wanted to call me. Okay, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So they're dating. He has no idea. And George was very successful. You know, he was always like, you know, his story is another story, you know, but from where he came from, born in Mexico, to what he'd already done at 21 when I met him. And let me actually back up a little bit. Let me back up. I met George at a house in Norwalk, at his sensei's house. His sensei was having a party, so George is a martial artist.
Yeah.
And he was, you know, I was invited with my cousin to go to the sensei's house because they were having a little party. And George was there with another girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Like that was before. You know,
Right,
girls.
George.
Got
He's in the
around.
building. He's in the building, George. You got around.
Little hoochie. So that's how I met him at 17 years old.
Yeah.
You know, so I met him at 17, 46 now, he's 50. So it's like, you know, it's like almost met him like more than half my life,
Yeah.
you know? And so fast forward, you know, we're all working at Century 21. So then I, you know, start dating this guy there at Century 21. We met and we ended up moving in together. We ended up moving in together. And so that meant me moving out of my mom's house again. You know, because I was staying there for a minute. And so I moved in with him. And I didn't know at the time that he was almost 10 years older than me.
This is the other guy, not
This is the guy that I met at Century
Yeah, okay.
21. Yeah, I didn't know he was almost 10 years older than me. And so this was the thing with George. He's like, he's older than you. I'm like, no, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. You know, and so it was just like an annoying thing, you know. And the guy was a loser, you know. Now that I see it, but when you're hanging out with,
but you were. I hate to call you a loser, but that was your crowd, right? Because you were kind of hanging in the same crowd too. So it was comfort.
Exactly.
Nobody was going to judge you,
right? Because you're doing these things.
You're doing them yourself.
Exactly.
Yes. So, George, can we get another bottle of champagne? Sorry, just real quick. Thank you. Thank you. Switch.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
George.
For you a little
See,
bit.
he comes in handy. He
Anita,
won't let me put him on the camera, but
you gotta catch up.
Bring us another bottle of champagne. Oh, you need some. Come, bring.
Does he need a refill?
Yeah,
we'll refill.
He won't show. We'll just show his glass. I'm still trying to get him in the chair. Maybe someday.
We will. That's another podcast. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, so he's older. You're living with him.
So he's older. We're living, and this is where it got heavier.
Yeah,
it got heavier. It got heavier because then I didn't know what smoking crack cocaine was.
Oh, he's the one who got you. Okay. So
then,
did you do it when you were a teenager? I thought you said.
No, at 18. So we were doing crystal meth, right?
You were doing, okay.
Crystal meth. But then you were like smoking it. Like I thought, then it was like introduced as you're smoking, you know.
Yeah.
And
totally different.
Yeah, and I don't.
It's all bad, but
it's all bad, different. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like George might be like, but it happened.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah.
It was true.
And you know what? We're here to be real, right? We're here to let people know that you can do these things and you can still get to the other side.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can see the light on the other side.
There's nothing that's going to keep you there, regardless of what you choose to try.
Right.
Not that we want anybody to try it,
right?
But there's another side.
Right. And let me back up a little bit more. So before I skipped this part, before I went to Century 21, when I turned 18, I was lost. I didn't know what to do. And I had this boyfriend kind of, you know, and again, it was like, oh my God, like these drugs are just there. But again, I can tell you that I never spent $1.
I believe it because I lived it too. You don't have to when you're they have it. It's there.
It's there. And so I was invited to go on this trip to San Francisco, right? With this guy and a girlfriend of mine lived out there at the time. And I went, you know, not knowing that I wasn't coming back. I stayed there for 3 months.
Wow.
I went to San Francisco, stayed there for 3 months. But I was supposed to come back like, I don't know, that weekend. At the end of the weekend or whatever. But then that was a big party.
Yeah.
They're partying and it's a big party and it was like a mini New York. And my whole dream was I want to move to New York one day. Thank God I didn't because I probably would have overdosed on something there.
Yeah,
who knows?
You never know, right?
So when I went to San Francisco, I was introduced to heroin.
Wow.
Okay. Girl. And it was laid out there. And I'm like, oh my God. Like this is like, that for me was that turning point of like, what is like, this is like where you become, there's no turning back or like you need to go, you know, to rehab. I didn't know, you know, but something in my heart was like, you can't do it. You can't do that. Even though you've done all this other shit, right? You're just like
I've been there. That's
right?
I've done a lot of stuff, but that's
heroin's
the
like,
same
it was
thing.
there and people are like, you know, shooting up the whole thing, whatever. And then it comes to me and they're like, oh, I said, I don't like needles, which I don't. And I was like, I can't do it, you know, but it was besides just the needles. I just couldn't do
something
that.
in your soul.
You could snort it. And I said, no, I removed myself. I don't remember where I went, but I removed myself, made something up. I gotta go. I gotta go. Like that was not for me.
Not your kind of party, yeah.
Still stayed there, did my thing, whatever. Came back. And then, you know, the whole Century 21 thing came about. So I'm living with this guy. And it's just a shit show, right? It's more abuse. And I'm used to just abuse, right? And he's not physically abusive, but highly mentally, verbally abused because he knows that I'm broken. He knows what's happened to me as a kid, and he knows the drugs, and he knows my, you know, the family situation, the whole thing, whatever. So it's just taking advantage.
Bonding.
Oh, he loves it. He's eating it all up. So that lasted about, I would say about 2.5 to 3 years. From the time I was 19 till I was about 22, almost 23, about 23 years old. And I have the scar today, right here. it just got to the point where it was just ugly. It just got ugly. And I remember just
Volatile.
busting my fist through the window. It was a little French door. And I busted through the window. And, there's blood everywhere. There's blood everywhere. And at that point, it's crazy to me how, like, I can be so damaged, but still, like, pay my rent, have a car payment, pay my bills, and function in life.
Unfortunately, Christina, that's so many people. That's the problem.
Right? You function in life.
But you like your mom, right?
Yeah.
You function out of trauma, like
Yeah.
survival
And
mode.
you're just surviving. And everything that we had bought in the house was mine. And I remember just calling my mom, and I said, I'm in like this traumatic state, and I'm just like crying and like shaking. And I said, you need to come pick me up right now. You need to bring a truck with you because I'm bleeding. And she's like, what do you mean you're bleeding? But it was just my hand. But it was open. I had to get stitches, the whole thing. I said, you just need to come. And she shows up in those rented U-Haul trucks. So she was still there for me. She was still there for me. We loaded up what we could. And then that was the end of that. That was the end of that. But that meant me having to move back with her.
Which had to be like huge to make that decision and so difficult.
But at that point, I had helped my mom buy a house.
Okay.
I had helped her buy a house in Norwalk on Greystone. And she went into the Calahafa way back then, right? Yeah. And so, we helped her remodel. And it wasn't the greatest house, but it was she was a home ownership. It was because as Latinos always want to help. Like, you're not done. You always have to help your family.
Absolutely.
It's like, that's just our culture. You have to help your family. And I remember at 16, 17, whether I was there or not, I would send her $50 here and there. But like we had to help no matter what. We had to help monetarily, right? And so I remember it was 100% financing, but we got her through the whole thing. Yeah. And she had converted the garage into this little room. And then that's where, she always had people living there. Yeah. Always like families and because that's what we knew. People took care of her.
I was just going to say that.
Right?
She was paying it forward.
Yes. And she was great at that. Like she wanted to help other people. God bless her. Like she always wanted to help other people. And that was her thing. But I'm just like, shit, like here we go again. Like always living, you never had your own space and nothing. But whatever, she helped other families. That was great for her, And so I was there and I was like, I got to get the F out of here. I got to get out of here as quickly as possible. And I want to say I was 23 at the time. And I was doing so when I was at Century 21, I forgot to tell you this. I was there for about 4 to 6 months. Yeah. And Maria Looney is an amazing mentor in my life. Always, forever. I'll always love her. Always.
I love that. Maria Looney. Oh, I love that. There's always those people. That's so special.
She is.
They don't, and you know what the best part is I bet you she doesn't even know. I'm sure you've probably told her by now, but
she doesn't know.
But really know how much she meant to you and what she really did for you, and that's like a reason why I do this too. And for all of you listening and watching, like, you don't know what some words can do for one person or like an act of kindness can do for that one person where they're at that moment. Like Maria did for Cristina.
She did. And she didn't have to because I'm just this girl that's sitting in the front desk and she was desperate for an assistant because she was very difficult to work for, right? Which is me today. Yeah. In a good way, though.
So she taught you well.
She taught me well. Yeah. And so, talked to George about it this time. I'm like, okay, you're hired. So I quit and I went to go work for her. And man, girl, she was tough. They don't make them like that no more.
Yeah.
And I thank her every single day of my life that she put me through it because it made me so tough.
Yeah.
It made me the boss lady that I am today, badass motherfucker that I am today. And because she was a badass motherfucker, and she's like, this is how it is. There was no nowadays you gotta be careful because everybody's so sensitive about what's gonna come out. No, do the work. Here it is. I'm gonna teach you. Fucking do it. And you might have to dodge something at some point, and some shit's thrown out. You can't do that no more.
Yeah.
But she was the greatest mentor ever. Oh, she took me under her wing, and whether it was crazy or not, it was crazy. It was fucking crazy. But I am an amazing loan officer today because of her.
Yeah,
because of her. Because she took the time to teach me, to show me, to she she took the time and she believed.
Yes.
And she believed,
Yes.
you know?
And she didn't quit on you.
And she didn't quit on me. And I want to say I'm one of the few that have gone on to do big things under her. You know what I mean? Even though like we're not part, but she's always a part of my heart.
Yes.
Always. Always. Maria, thank you. I love you. And hopefully, you know, hopefully you see this one day because she was an amazing, amazing mentor. She is. She is. And she's amazing today. Like she is self-made. And just give her, you know, I'm always one like giving props. You know what I mean? And she is one that I like, hands down, an amazing mom. And she's not perfect.
Yes.
By
well,
far,
none of us are.
But she is an amazing, powerful woman for sure. So fast forward, right? To where were we? We were at, so I'm 23 years old and I'm somewhat like doing good things, right? So I knew how to get out of my mom's house. And the only way she was going to let me leave, because it's been so crazy, is if I bought something or rented something on my own, or not even rented, because she was like, why are you going to go rent when you can be here? So I bought a condo at 23 years old.
Okay.
At an 8.25% rate, guys. Okay. 8.25. So when you think the rates are high.
Cry
exactly. And I thought it was a great rate. And Maria did my loan. Yeah. She did my loan with first guarantee. I think it was first guarantee. It was Gina. These are old school ladies. Gina Carr. Old school lady, right? So, you know, I came home one day and I said, Mom, I bought a condo and I'm moving. And she's like, oh my God. And she's like, you're moving? And I said, yes, oh my God, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm buying my brand new first car. I had a little red Honda. And so George, who has his girlfriend, who is my friend, right? And her sister is my friend. You know, I'm not going to say any names, but I think you know. You know, I'm
gonna pretend I don't.
You know, we're all friends, whatever. I had to make this phone call. The guy that I despise, because he had a hookup for Audi and I wanted to get this Audi A4. So I had to make the phone call. I said, hey, George, blah, 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 this and that. Can you call your buddy Dan and blah, blah, blah. So he did. He did me the favor. And so then I went, picked up my car. My uncle co-signed for me, Tio Reyes. I'm going to give him a little
shout out to
him. Shout out to him.
He's getting shout outs today.
He did. And so he came and co-signed for me and I got my new car. Remember him sitting in my car. It's like, wow, it's like, you know, it's like a plane inside, blah, 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 whatever. And we're driving away like, wow. Like, you're like, I got my condo. You know, I got away from that bad relationship. And at that point, I know I'm like, I need to clean my shit up. But even then, I already knew. I already knew. I'm like, I've been through all this. I don't want this life no more. I know if I can do this, I can even go further. Yeah. I can even go further. I can do bigger things.
You started seeing really that silver lining.
If I can be that fucked up doing good stuff for myself, imagine like when you're off of all that shit and you can really do something. You know what I mean? Like, what can you really do with your life? You know what I mean? So like anybody out there that's like stuck or feeling a certain way or like, or you don't see like the end of the tunnel or like there's no other way out. There's always a way out. There's always, but it comes from you. Yeah. Because people can help you, but you execute. Yeah. It was the execution, right? So then I'm like, okay, I'm feeling good. I'm doing good things. I have my own place and I bought little furniture here and there. I remodeled and like, I'm in real estate and I'm like doing good and blah, blah, blah. So after I, you know, got my car, I drove over to George's house in Norwalk and I wanted to say thank you to him. Yeah. And he walks out and he's like, what's up? And I'm like, just want to say thank you, you know, for like helping me. And he's like, yeah. He's like, but you got to go because, you know, my girlfriend's coming and she, you know, she doesn't want you here, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what an asshole. Yeah. I was like, and this is why, you know, this is why. So whatever. So it was right around 4th of July. Right around 4th of July, I was at my mom's house for breakfast and I'm going home and we're crossing paths. He's driving, I'm driving. And he makes a U-turn and it's honking. And he's like, pull over. Pulled over and he's like, wow, your car is amazing. Blah, blah. I'm like, I was just at your house last week or a few days ago. And I was like,
you're acting like you're seeing it for the first time.
Exactly.
Now I know I don't like you.
Yeah. So then he's like, what are you doing tonight? And I'm like, I don't, you know, I have some plans with this new guy that I'm kind of going out with, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, we should all go out in Newport. So then Maria, my boss, well, she was my broker at the time. She was like, they were having a party in San Juan Capistrano. And she was living in Newport Beach, but she just had a baby at the time. And so, it's so funny. It's a crazy story. So then I said, well, Maria's so-and-so, you know, Marilyn's having a party in San Juan Capistrano, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, we should all go out. And then this, that, you, your cousin, his girlfriend, and we'll all meet up. George shows up to my condo. Okay, so now, fast forward, it was planned, right? He shows up to my condo. I'm still blow drying my hair, and I'm just like, this is fucking crazy, because his girl was crazy, and I'm like, this is crazy, and like, what is he doing here? And he's like, they're on their way. I'm like, okay, well, what time? Blah blah blah. Well, they're not coming. What do you mean they're not coming? He's like, but let's just still go out and let's go to Joe's Crab Shack.
Did he lie to you?
Yes.
George, you sneaky little bastard.
You know you're over there.
I know you're over there listening. He's like, hey.
So then we go to Joe's Crab Shack in Newport Beach. We have the greatest time. We're having a great conversation. I'm 24. So, we're had a couple of drinks in us. And I said, let's go to Maria's house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, okay, yeah, let's go to Maria's house. So we go to Maria's house. I remember Maria had the baby, right? Kind of like latched on with like this sling. And she opens the door. And she has this look. And she's like, what are you doing here? And I said, we just came to say hi. We're right down the street. And she goes, no. She goes, but what are you doing here? I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, together. I said, well, we're going to go to Marilyn's house. And I don't know her address, blah, blah, blah. Just very innocent. She goes, but why are you together? And George is like, no. He's like, we're just like friends. And she's like, I'm going to let you in my house. But you were never in my house.
Oh,
she's like, you were never
she
here.
Wanted no part of it.
Yeah, right? So we go in, we're hanging out, we're talking. She gives us the address, this, that, whatever. And she's like, I'm not going to the party. She's like, it's all you. So we go to this party. And someone comes in front of him. And there's two sides to the story.
There's always three.
Right? So we have the greatest time at this party, right? And it's the funniest thing, right? Because at this party, there's like piles of cocaine.
You're like, here we go again.
Here we go again, right? But I've been good. Yeah. I've been good. I haven't been hanging out with these people. And George, God bless him, he's like, you can do cocaine if you want. I said, no. I said, no, I'm not doing that. What is wrong with you? I was like, no, right? But
yeah. He's trying to be cool.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to make you do anything, right? Or not do anything.
Because we're like this all the time, right?
Yeah.
So we're at this, so we're under a gazebo. So romantic. Right? Yeah. We were talking, and he's complaining about his relationship. I said, it's all gonna work out. Don't worry. Blah, 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 things happen, blah, 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 this, that. Yeah. They were kind of like living together, but not supposedly, whatever the deal was.
I still don't know the truth.
And to be honest, at that point, like, I was separated myself from those people already, because
so
they were
it's not like
good.
It was your friends.
Not anymore, not anymore. There are people that I did not want to associate myself with, and they're never going to change until this day. Like, it's, they really didn't get very far. And, that's not what I wanted from my life, right. So I knew I was meant for bigger things, greater things. What were they? I have no idea. Mm-hmm. But I knew, like, I was done with the whole drug, like, thing at that time, whatever. And so as we're talking, George turns me around and he kisses me. Mm. He says, like, dog. He says, I kiss him, but no, that's not nothing, right? And I knew at that moment that line had been crossed. Mm-hmm. That line had been crossed, and we cannot go back. Mm-hmm. We cannot go back.
Yeah.
So, that night, the owners of the house said, stay the night. You shouldn't drive home. You had too much to drink, blah, blah, blah. And we did. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened that night. George, I'm not going to share.
But he's still a virgin.
He's still a virgin, right. But, yeah, nothing happened that night, right? So then drops me off at home, and we drove my car, and I was like, this is, like, I don't want to talk about this ever again. This never happened, blah, 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 whatever. Then he just showed up at my work one day, at my office, parking lot. And I said, oh, my God, what are you doing here? I said, people know her. People know me. Oh, my God, what's happening, blah, blah, blah. But there was a part of me that, like, liked that he was there. That he was there, right?
Because you knew, like, it meant something. It wasn't just another guy taking advantage of a situation.
There was something there, right?
Oh, my gosh. This is great. But we're going to have to go to an episode 2 because we just got too much going, and I don't want to stop you. Yes. I don't want to cut it short, and I want to continue on with this story.
Let's do it.
All right. Awesome. All right. We'll see you guys back for episode 2.